Stream is live.
World, what is up, world? You are in tune to the new podcast with me here, me and my partner, man. We gonna definitely be on here talking about some good stuff, man. It's called Making the Adjustment Podcast. It's hosted by myself, Victorious, and by Elder O'Brien Wilkinson, man. We'll be here every Wednesday at 8:30. We're a little late, but hey, man, we here nevertheless. How you doing tonight, Elder?
Man, it's all good. You know how life be. It's got its challenges, but as long as you can breathe, as long as you're alive, then you're blessed.
This is true. Man, basically we started this, man. We want to make sure that we talk to you because the only constant in life is change. To get the most out of it, you got to make the adjustments, man. And tonight we're talking about a subject that I thought would definitely be good. And I'm going to let O kind of set it up, man. We're talking about returning to your vomit, man. Let's talk about it, man. Let's dig into it, man. Tell me, what do you think about this whole subject? First of all, what is vomit? What is returning to your vomit? Let's talk about it.
Well, we all have internal beliefs, internal truths that we stand by. And when something violently opposes my internal truth, it's not good for me. So I got to give it up. I got to, get it out of my system. And when you release something from your system or you give something up, oftentimes you feel a little empty. You feel a little bit alone because whenever you stand on truth and everybody around you doesn't support it, you kind of feel by yourself. So you tend to want to compromise and go back to the thing that wasn't good for the system that you were set up and established for your life. And the truth of the matter is, sometimes you just got to be alone so that you don't be sick. Because taking in something that's not good for you, oftentimes will make you sick. And just because you believe that you need to have something doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have it. So give up the vomit, let it stay out of your life, deal with that season of emptiness or loneliness for a moment, versus returning back to something that ultimately is going to destroy you. Because anything that makes you sick, if it remains in your system or remains in your life, will eventually take you out.
You saying something that make us sick, like when we're talking about it, and I hear what you're saying. My thought process on this whole thing is that your internal truth, you spoke of that. What is an internal truth? What would you call a truth that you say that's internal that we have as people and individuals?
Well, we often have belief systems. Say, for example, I say to myself, I am not going to be in a relationship with a negative person, a person that sees the glass half empty versus half full. But because, times and things like that happen, I run into situations where I feel like, look, I'm getting older. I'm tired of being alone. I'll just settle for whatever comes. Well, I just violated my truth because settling is me saying that it's okay for me to have a glass that's half empty because somehow I'm going to convince it to believe that it's a glass that's half full. But you can't change the way a person thinks. You can only change the way you think. So your internal truth system has to be established by you, and you can't compromise it with the belief that you can make other people embrace what you believe. You have to understand what they believe. And if they don't believe what you believe, then it becomes toxic and like vomit. It can't remain in your system. Otherwise, it's going to make you sick. It will destroy you.
Well, I mean, and I like that example too, because when you do have when a human person vomits, it's a constriction, and it's pushing it out, but it's holding it in at the same time. And I think we do that a lot. I think there are things that, oppose our internal truths, and we hold on to them or we hold fast to them. But why do you think we hold fast? Do you think it's more of a comfortable place for us, or you think it's just one of those things that, we've been doing this for so long, I don't want to change?
Well, one of the things about truth, or when you have a belief system, it's a system that makes you feel confident about who you are. It's a system that was derived and established out of some of the tragedies and traumas you may have experienced in your life. And oftentimes when you stand on your truth, you kind of stand alone, because not everybody can walk in the shoes for which you walked in. Not everybody grew up the way you grew up. So you establish the truth to make sense of why you live how you live. But when you notice that other people seem or appear to be having more fun than you are, based upon the truth that you've established for your life, there's a tendency to want to compromise. You know what I'm saying? Well, maybe I'm being a little too drastic, or maybe I'm being a little too, over, excessive about this thing. I need to loosen up a little bit. No, never compromise what you've established for yourself, what you believe about, the position that you hold, because you feel like everybody else apparently is doing, growing, or experiencing something that you're not. At some point, your truth will deliver exactly what it's supposed to deliver if you hold out. But we compromise because, in this generation, everybody's about, that microwave. But, sometimes you got to let that thing slow cook in order for you to get the best flavor out of it, in order for you to get the most and for it to last the longest. And that's what your belief system and your truth does. It's a slow cooker. It's not something that happens instantly. You got to allow it to take its time to go through its process. And then when it produces, it will last long.
But how do I know that? How do I know that, because you saying it's nice, but how do I know if I begin something, I'm gonna be able to get to that? And because when it comes down to it, we're all filled with hopes and dreams and aspirations. And you're saying, well, I gotta stick to this so that this won't happen. Well, what's wrong with a person kind of sticking to a pattern that might be toxic, or they may think it's toxic, but it's good for them? Why should they give that up?
Well, if you understand anything about the term that you just express, toxic, nothing toxic is ever good for you. It's like the world doesn't realize that which tastes bad is often that which is good for you. So what they try to do is they try to make something that once tastes bad taste good. But what you do is you kind of dumb down the effects of what will help you in the long run. So when you start making excuses for your truths, and when you start compromising your truths because you want it to be more comfortable for you, that's like you putting flavoring in a cough syrup, you know what I'm saying, so that you can ingest it better. No, it's supposed to taste bad, because anything that tastes bad is going to be good for you.
Well, I might want to put some orange juice in my black Cedo, you know what I'm saying, so that way it tastes better going down.
Yeah, but what you're doing is you're trying to make it convenient and comfortable for you. And the problem is you trick yourself into believing that that's what life's going to do whenever it throws something at you. And life does not operate based upon how we feel or what we think. Life just does what it does. So if you get in the habit of saying, I'm going to do this in my life, when you run into life, and it doesn't make the adjustment for you, then you evade it or try to avoid having to deal with life. Problem is, you can't evade or avoid life. Change is inevitable. It's going to happen with or without you. You have to learn to cooperate with it. So therefore, stop trying to make things easier for you when you know that change won't make it easier for you.
Well, okay, and I hear that, and I think that's good, but I can hear a lot of people at the same time saying, well, I'm changing at a pace that's good for me, or a pace that's right for me, and this is still serving me. This person is still serving me in my life, or this action is still serving me in my life. I'm not ready to let it go yet. So what would you say to somebody like that? What would you say to somebody who feels as if they're not ready to let certain things go and actually make the change or make the adjustment to be able to not go back to the same pattern or return to that vomit? Because returning to your vomit is a pattern, right? It's definitely a pattern. It's something that somebody does. But what would you tell them, like, if they're not ready to let go and they're not ready to quit? It's like somebody smoking cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? They've been smoking cigarettes for so long, and I'm not ready to let that go. Or, I've been, doing this certain thing for so long, I'm not ready to let it go. What would you say to somebody like that?
If you notice that when you have a poison in your system, whether it be through alcohol or whether you ate a bad meal or something like that, the one thing they do is they drop you to your knees and they stick two fingers in your mouth to try to force you to throw up the thing that could possibly destroy your life or end your life at some point. And some point in your life, you got habits that you know are destroying you. You're gonna have to drop to your knees and get a good friend or either yourself and stick your fingers in your throat and force yourself to give that thing up. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not benefiting you. It's not.
But I'm saying that's an example. But how would I do that like in my life? You know what I'm saying? I'm not literally going.
Well, when I say force your fingers, what you should hear is that I'm telling you to be drastic about the change. Don't be casual with the change. Don't go, all right, I'm gonna smoke a cigarette on Monday, but then I'm gonna stop smoking Wednesday and Thursday. No, go cold turkey. And you know what? You know what's hard about being drastic is that it's uncomfortable. It causes severe pain because your body craves it. Your mind has convinced you that you need it. But when you go drastic, you tell your mind, I don't care what you think. I don't care how you feel. I'm going to just ride this thing out. Whatever I got to do, I'm going to ride it out. That's me. That means to me that I'm serious about this transformation. I'm serious about this change. And then it also tells me that I believe that I don't have the time that I think I got. When you think that you can control time, then you tell yourself, I'll do it here. I'll do it then. I'll take my time. Nobody controls time.
Whoa, wait a minute. Explain that.
Nobody controls time. It takes time. It takes time to improve my experiences in life, but you don't control that. All you can do is cooperate with each day. Every day that you wake up, if you don't have a plan to improve yourself, your way of thinking, then you become a repeat offender, which means that you're going to repeat offending yourself, offending your principles, and offending the people that come across your path that could be opportunities for your growth and development. You are like a dog returning to its vomit. You keep ingesting the very thing that's killing you simply because you won't change the way you think, or because you have convinced yourself that you control time so you can take your time and making the necessary change that you need to make in life. And you don't have that kind of time.
So you're saying I don't control my own time? Is that what you're saying?
Nobody controls their time. Nobody. All you can do is put something into the time that you've been given. We all been given 24/7. You got 24 hours, 7 days a week. All you can do is manage the time that you've been given. You can't control it. And then there are things that are unexpected that will show up. You can't stop the unexpected things within the time frame that you've been given. All you can do is determine how you're going to respond to that unexpected situation within the time frame you've been given. And how you should respond is that I'm not going to allow something toxic to remain in my mind, in my body, in my spirit, in my conversation, in my ears. I control that. I don't control time, but I can control whether or not I'm going to take in a vomit that opposes my internal truths. I can determine that. You can't force yourself on me without me turning around being violent against the thing trying to come up against me. It's like a mother who sees somebody bullying her child. If she a real mama, she gonna become something totally different. No matter how young or how old the individual is, she gonna become violent because they're fighting against something, okay, that she opposes, and that is the protection of her child.
Right. So what's practical? Let's talk from a practical standpoint. How can I identify my truths? How can I identify my internal truths, the things that I hold internally true? Like, how can I identify those?
I can't tell you how to identify your truths because my traumas and your traumas are different. You establish truths based upon the traumas you've gone through in your life, things that you've experienced that hurt you and caused you great pain, and you promised yourself, I may never put myself through that. I don't want to ever experience this because it hurts, blah, blah, blah. So what you do is you establish a system to defend against things like that happening. Take, for example, if I punched you in your stomach and caught you off guard one day. Now Anytime you see somebody swing or move their hand, it's like a reflex response to defend yourself against that, because that was a trauma that happened in your life. So you got to search the histories of your life and decide what has caused you great pain, what has hindered your progress, what has stopped you over the years, and you establish a system of truths that will protect you from having to go down that path and that road again. Then you become violent about protecting it.
So you're telling me that, my truths can be established through my trauma, or
They
because of
better be established through your traumas. Yeah. Yeah, they better be established through your traumas, and they can be established through good times as well. Because I like the way this experience has happened. Take a relationship between an individual and we were able to sit down and have a great conversation. Well, I want to protect that kind of space because we learned so much during that time. So let's establish a truth that will protect it so nothing toxic can come in and disrupt it, because we grow in an environment where we're able to have effective communication. But anytime there's division in our communication, that becomes toxic. That's a vomit that will hinder the growth and development of the relationship. So I need to establish a truth that will keep that out and not allow it to come in and disrupt where we're trying to go.
So, well, what about from a negative place? Like if because of my trauma, I formed something negative, right? That can't be a truth though, right? Because truth is resolute. It's hard. It's something.
If you form something negative out of your trauma, it's because you're stuck in the what and you never discover the why. Why did I go through this? You understand? Once you start dealing with the why, and I'm not saying negate the what, but the why has more power than the what does, because the what is already experienced. You already experienced it. The why you haven't. And once you start dealing with the why I went through this, it begins to unfold a strength that you would have never been able to acquire had you not gone through that trauma.
But how can you explain a why? I mean, if something like if I'm a kid and I experience somebody of molestation, I can't. There's no why to that.
There is a why to it, okay? Because you can say to yourself, "Why me?" Right?
Right.
But it's not just you. You need to understand why the individual do such a thing. So you have to go beyond you and look at the one that caused the issue. Once you start dealing with the one that caused the issue, now you establish a truth that say, I need to avoid people that behave in such a manner or think in such a way so that I don't have to experience this ever again. Then I'm going to draw strength from this situation so I can help other people who may be either going down that path or been through that situation. Because people commit suicide behind certain traumas, but we could save them if we find a way to survive. Tupac said a long time ago, they win when your soul dies. So he was basically saying, you got to find a way to fight through it. I know it was hard. I know it was difficult. I know you didn't ask for it. I know you wish it would have never happened, but you got to find a way to survive. Because if you don't survive, then the one who caused the issue will win. And the people who will need to get strength from your situation won't be able to get it because you're no longer here. So there's no negative in the outcome. It's only negative when you think of the situation from that perspective. I know it's hard. I know let me tell you, man, I was married 25 years and I went through a divorce. And that was traumatic for me because it was like a death. And I could go, man, it's negative. I could be mad at, the situation. I could be mad at the universe. I could be mad at God. I could be mad at a whole bunch of stuff. But I needed to understand the why. And when I started digging into the why, it made me look at myself and my contribution. Then it made me go back into the history of my parents and her parents to see, was there a breakdown in that system at some point? Because if there was a breakdown in that system and I don't know, that system is going to still be there and it's going to follow me.
Right.
And when it follows me, it's going to try to do to my situation what it has done throughout history. That's why people go through this whole ancestral thing. They want to know where I'm from, what my background is, because I want to know, is there, alcoholism in my genes? What's in this? Because they're trying to say, I want to head this thing off before it becomes a problem. That's an internal truth that you develop, and then you become aggressive about protecting yourself against something that may have happened 4 generations back. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But if you don't take the time to become aggressive in the situations like that, then you wind up taking in some toxic stuff, and you wind up living with the toxicity, and it winds up destroying not just you, but everything connected to you. That's why vomit is so bad. Got to get it out your system. Got to get it out your relationships. Got to get it out your finances. Got to get it out of your way of thinking. You got to get it out, and you can't adopt it or embrace it or allow it back in, because it's always going to try to convince you to let it back in.
Right. So you're saying totally turn your back on it. Once you get it out, leave it alone and never return back to that place.
You don't have to turn your back on it. Establish a truth. Your truth will fight it. Even when you're unaware of it, your standard won't allow it to come in.
I like it. So as we're sitting and we're talking about, breaking cycles and changing patterns and not returning back to our vomit. But you had a nice acrostic for it, man. Talk to me about that acrostic about vomit real quick.
Violently opposing my internal truths. And the word violent suggests how aggressive you have to be against something that's fighting against a system that you've established to defend not just you, but everything connected to you. And if you notice that when somebody is vomiting, the experience itself is violent.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it causes great pain on the inside. And anytime you are trying to protect something, there's always going to be internal pain. But once you get it out, there's a relief. You understand what I'm saying? There's a clarity that comes with it. However, if you find yourself back in that space again too many times, it weakens and breaks down your internal truth. And next thing you know, now you don't have a system to fight against it. So the thing that you once got out of you is now in you, and it's running your life. It's destroying your life.
Right. I think, and I'm hearing you say that you have to first, and that's why I asked you. You have to first identify your truths, your internal truths, and begin to fortify and stand on them, and then they will protect you from actually running these cycles again, right? And running same cycles in life. But okay, so here's another thing. What if you actually find yourself in these cycles and you haven't opposed your own internal truth, but you just keep finding yourself back in a place that's super familiar?
One of the things about the internal truth is it's mental. The truth is established in your psyche, in your thinking. If a person finds themselves repeatedly returning to their vomit, it's because they themselves are working against themselves by not educating themselves on what needs to continuously happen. So I'm not spending days changing the way I think. Every day should be a day that I change something about how I think. I should not think the same on Tuesday that I thought on Monday. Nor should I think the same Tuesday on Wednesday. Every day I should be adding something new to my way of thinking. This way I'm not recycling the same thoughts, just like you don't recycle the same air.
Right.
And as long as you recycle the same way of thinking, then yeah, you're going to become a repeat offender, not just against other people, but against your own self, against your own system.
Wow.
That's designed to protect your life. So you should read. You should listen to podcasts. You should listen to motivational teachings and things like that all the time. Every day, it should be a different podcast, a different book you're reading, or a different chapter within the same book, because each chapter gives you a different way of thinking and training your mind and establishing your internal truth. But the days that you fade off or fall off, that's information that is not being given. So now you're recycling something, and you're going to slip and fall back into. So you're going to have a rough day that day because you don't have anything to fight against the thing that's coming up against you.
But oh man, I want to be happy, man. You hit it just like, man, I just want to be happy, man. I want to do what I do, and I want to live my best life, man. What do you say? I mean, what do you say to people when they respond to that? And because all the time, let's say like this. I was a repeat offender on putting the cape on, trying to save folks. I understand I can't do that anymore. But when you hear somebody be like, yo, man, I just want to be happy, man. I want to live my life. What would you tell somebody, and then they keep ending back up, returning to their vomit? What would you tell them, man?
Well, most people don't understand that freedom doesn't mean the absence of work or the absence of responsibility. In fact, freedom costs more than slavery. Whenever the slaves were free, they had to go find their own land, they had to go find their own food, they had to establish their own way. It's only in slavery, if you ever ask a person who's ever been a convict in jail, everything's provided for you. They provide the soap for you, they provide the clothes for you, they provide the food for you, they provide the bedding for you. But when you have to get out there and work for yourself and your resources are limited, then you begin to understand the value of freedom versus being a slave. And for a person who keeps returning back.
Whoa, pump your brakes. Pump your brakes. So you telling me that freedom has a higher price than being a slave?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Freedom does have a higher price. Freedom costs you more than slavery does. Take a person who's addicted to cigarettes. You know why it costs them less? Because after a while, those cigarettes will take everything that they had.
Wow.
But for a person who's free, everything is still available to him, and it requires his time, his attention, his money, his energy, his efforts. But when you're addicted to something, after a while, it takes everything that you got. So therefore, there's nothing for you to pay for. And yet you still have the craving, but no means to address it. So you become a slave to it. So now it's running your life. And ultimately, when you can't pay up, you know what it does? It takes your life, because you no longer give me anything. So I'm not going to give you anything.
Wow. Yeah, totally get it. So the last thing here on, go ahead.
No, I didn't say anything.
The last thing here on returning to your vomit, or going back to these same patterns. We were talking about basically not being what the Bible calls a fool. Of course, we speak from a couple different perspectives here. When we say we talk about foolish actions, but what is like being a fool? What would you say, like, when the Bible is referring to a fool, what is the Bible talking about?
Well, if I had to say, when the Bible refers to a person who's a fool, it's referring to a person who has decided that they know more than God. Anytime you think you know more than the person that made you or created you, you know what I'm saying? Let's take, for example, the Surgeon General warning. It says, look, if you smoke these after a certain period of time, it's going to cause cancer, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And you go, oh, that's not going to happen to me. Come on now. The Surgeon General warned, they done their research, they done some tests, they got case studies prior to your smoking cigarettes, prior to you being born. But it ain't gonna happen to you. You know who you're talking like? A wise man? No, you're talking like a fool.
Yeah.
So a fool is somebody who gets knowledge handed to them, but rejects the knowledge because it's not comfortable for them, or allows them to behave in a way that they feel is living their best life. You don't live your best life when you ignore information. You live your best life when you take the information that's been given and you apply it and you produce fruit, and other people are fed from that fruit.
Wow. So
that's living your best life.
You don't live your best life when you ignore information, is what you're saying. So we're all information, but some people are not doing anything with the information.
No, because information didn't come to you for you. It came to you for you and for somebody else. It came to you so that you can produce fruit. And in that fruit is a seed. So when the person feeds off of the fruit that you have and plants that seed within themselves, they produce fruits so somebody else can experience the same thing. And it perpetually goes on. That's the best life. Anytime you're the only person that benefits from it, you're not living your best life. You live in your worst life. You just convinced yourself, so you are deceived. Being deceived is a foolish game.
So three things, three ways that I can keep myself from repeating patterns and going back through the same thing. Give me those. We're gonna close out on that.
All right, three things. Three things is to daily educate your mind. And when I say educate your mind, don't recycle information. There are 1,001 or 1,000,001 principles in the world. You may not memorize them all today, so memorize some more tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. But don't memorize them to the point where your mind is like a candy box. Memorize them to the point where you can apply them in your everyday life. So as you apply them in your everyday life, people begin to question the fruit that they see from the position of how you think. Because I'll never know how you think until I see it active in how you live.
Wow.
That's how, if you ever want to know what a person's thinking, watch how they behave. Watch what they say. I ain't got to be in your head. I just got to listen to what you say and watch how you behave. If how you behave and what you say, conflict, I know you're a double-minded person.
Yeah, out of abundance of a man's heart, mouth speaks. Absolutely.
So one, you want to educate your mind. Two, you want to do one of the hardest things on the planet that most people don't like to do at all, and that's discipline. Doing what you don't want to do, that's discipline. Do what you don't feel like doing. Do what you don't want to do. Don't make excuses. Oh, if I had more time, or I got to make time. You can't make time because you don't even own time. All you can do is manage time. So when you say make time, that's a foolish statement. You can't make time, you manage time. So change the way you think, discipline yourself, do what you don't want to do, okay? And lastly, always keep your word first to yourself before anybody else.
Wow.
Because if you can't keep it to yourself, then you won't ever keep it to me. If you lie to you, you're going to lie to me. I can tell you right now. You can't be honest with yourself, you ain't going to be honest with nobody.
It's true. This is true. I'm sitting and I'm listening, man, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, all right, I don't want to see anybody go back and return to those old issues. We want to see y'all make the change, pivot and make the adjustment. You know what I mean? You have to. Life is happening on a continual basis. And the me that you knew yesterday is not the me that you're going to know tomorrow. There should be some change inside of that person, and we should happen, but you can't do it unless you make the adjustment.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, you don't have to make the adjustment, okay? But if you don't make the adjustment, then life is just gonna eat you alive. The one thing about life is that it has no feelings, it has no emotions, it has no care or concern.
Life keep life.
So if you don't make the adjustment, it's like a gangbanger. You tell them, look, man, get out these streets. These streets is crazy. You know what I'm saying? These streets ain't gonna do you no good. And you go, nah, I'm good. I'm all right. I'm fine. Well, that bullet, it don't have your name. It has everybody's name on it. So when you got shot by everybody's bullet.
Facts. Yeah.
That wasn't your bullet. That was everybody's bullet. That was anybody's bullet that was there when the bullet was released. You got to have an internal truth that I am not going to be out here because not only because of the risk, but because my life is more valuable. And yeah, it's going to take time to establish yourself. Everybody wants the quick gains. I'm all for quick gains, okay, if I'm a fool. But if I'm a wise man, I understand that anything that comes quick will go just as fast as it came. But as a wise man, anything you build little by little, it will last because you have been given the opportunity to understand how to develop it. Even if it's stolen, I can get it back. Why? Because I understand the principles of how to acquire it. But if I get it too quick and it's stolen, I'm at a loss now.
Yeah, definitely. So leaving with a parting shot, man. Give us a parting shot for this week.
Give me explain what you mean.
A parting shot, something you want to leave somebody with. You know, if there was somebody
change constantly happens and never gets easy. You got to get stronger. That's life. It constantly happens and it never gets easy. It's called change. And if you don't do it, if you're not changing, you're either dead or you're dying. How about that? If you're not changing, you're dead already or you're dying.
So that was an acronym, you guys out there.
Yeah.
Catch it. He finna repeat it one more time.
Constantly happens and never gets easy. Change. And if you're not changing, you're either dead or you're dying.
I love it, man. Listen, we thank you guys for just watching this pilot episode, man. This first one. We're gonna be back here every Wednesday at 8:30. We're gonna make it, man. I'm telling you, the only constant in life is change. To get the most out of it, you gotta make the adjustments, man. We thank you for myself and for Elder O. We're gonna catch up with y'all again 8:30 on Wednesday. We out of here. Peace.
Peace.